So I have been testing the Z52 over a couple months, and we're just going to talk about the photo and video aspect of it right now, and we'll have some examples on the screen as well. Now, if you're coming from like a DSLR to a Z52 and you've never experienced mirrorless, I will say with this camera there is a slight delay in the viewfinder whenever you take pictures, just like you do with a DSLR. It is not a live feed of viewfinder, it is not a stacked sensor like a Z9. Now you can shoot 5 frames per second in continuous low. Future me here, continuous high is 5.5 frames per second about, and silent mode is 6.7. Continuous high extended is 11 frames per second mechanical, and about 9 frames per second with silent mode on. Okay, with that fixed, back to the video. And in that mode, the viewfinder doesn't have a blackout. It has a little bit of like a stutter to it. It's not that detrimental now for tracking moving objects in the sky. It's not as bad as the first generation Z50. And whenever I record the EVF, when I'm shooting continuous low and high, it doesn't show the actual blackout from the shutter for some reason. But every time you see a stutter and it like shows another picture, that's the blackout. So the recorded EVF in continuous low and high doesn't look exactly how it appears. And then when it comes to video, you have 4K 30, and that is sampled inside from 5.3K 30. So if you want the sharpest video out of this, you're going to want to shoot 4K 30 frames or 24, and you're going to want to shoot an N-Log. An N-Log is a really nice flat profile that you can grade with, and you can slap on a whole bunch of different LUTs and things you're choosing. You can use a Nikon LUTs or the nice new Nikon Red LUTs, which look really nice as a base for you to start grading it. So it's pretty easy to match the Z52 with the Z9 using a log profile, and you can use LUTs to match both. Slow motion, you can shoot 1080p 120. Which when you view on YouTube, it's actually not going to be as bad as you think it would be compared to like 4K 120 from like a Z8, Z9 or whatnot. And there is no crop on that, but there is no crop option to use either. So like on the Z9, you can shoot 4K 120 and there's no crop, or in crop mode, which is a 2.3x, which is very useful for wildlife, especially in a kayak. But the Z52 does not have that ability. So you're kind of stuck with whatever lens you happen to be putting on there. You are already on a 1.5x crop, so it's kind of nice. So like your 600 turns into a 900, and plus you can shoot 1080 120 on it. So let's talk about the rolling shutter on this camera. If you are shooting something high pace, high action, like birds in flight or things like that, definitely use the mechanical shutter. Electronic shutter scans at about 24.8 or 25 milliseconds, around there, which isn't the worst for video, but for photo you're gonna struggle to have like bent wings and a whole bunch of other things going on. Now I shot a wind turbine that measures wind speed in our garden, and just to give you an example of mechanical versus electronic, you can definitely see that electronic scans slow enough to where things start warping and bending. So if you're gonna shoot like aviation, props, or cars racing, definitely use the mechanical shutter for photo. When it comes to video, you can't really get around that. So your best bet with that is just make do with what you got, or buy a better camera. So let's talk about autofocus, okay? For talking head like this, autofocus works awesome. It is a lot more reliable and trustworthy than the ZFC or the Z50 or the Z30. They all use the same Expeed 6. The Z30, the ZFC, the Z50, Z52, all 4 cameras, they use the same D500 sensor, so it is not going to get you the same dynamic range as, say, a Z7. Maybe not even a Z8 or Z9, even if they're electronic only. But it is still a very reliable sensor, and I have used the D500 for years, and I got really good pictures with it, and the landscapes and stuff I got out of it, the sensor was not going to hold me back. There's many ways around it. You can do HDR stacking, you can stitch, you can do all kinds of stuff when you go to edit. So don't think this sensor is going to hold you back in capturing anything beautiful. So when it comes to autofocus tracking with moving objects, not just talking head, one of the cool things about it is in video, it now has this thing called a product showcase. So basically you just hold the thing up and you hold it in front of you like this, and it'll focus on whatever's closest. You put it back down, it transfers back to your face. It works really good. I did a video using it, talking about photo prints and things. And actually, was very quick and subtle going back and forth. It wasn't focus racking, it wasn't doing anything crazy like that. So when it comes to photo and video, there's a switch on top, switch back and forth. This saves the banks differently. So whatever settings you had in photo is going to be different than what you had in video, which is very helpful. So if you're going to switch between things, you don't have to worry about resetting your settings for exposure between them. So if you're in a kayak and you're taking pictures, okay, then you hit the little switch to switch to video, your video settings will be where you left them off, so you can program them both ahead of time and switch between them pretty easily. And the autofocus continuous tracking for both of those is basically the same options. You get people, animals, birds, planes, trains, everything in between. You can put it on automatic, so it switches between all the autofocus settings. Some of the other cameras may not be able to do that in this price range. And I really like that because you can just hand the camera to somebody and say, hey, take pictures of this thing for me, and the camera will just know what you need to focus on, which is super nice. So if you have a second shooter, it makes that life a little bit easier, and it makes a really good backup second shooter camera. And for photo, you can shoot 200 frames in a continuous burst, just like a D500. So that's very nice. You don't have to worry about, running out of buffer space or anything like that, especially with a V90 card. And then with birds, it's something I shoot a lot of. It walks right onto their head. You don't have to worry about anything. It doesn't really confuse them too much with anything brown around them, if the bird's brown. But if it does, you can program the function button on the 180 to 600, and I'm sure other lenses too. You can switch to single point, pinpoint that bird through the brush, let go of it, it'll switch back to whatever tracking you use, and it will lock onto that bird in the brush. And for planes and cars and things, I've tested it out. The autofocus tracking feels very similar to the Z9, but you're not going to get the electronic shutter readout speed, and you're not going to get 45 megapixels, and a bunch of other obvious caveats. I just wish it had a vertical grip, because I really like the big body cameras, and I wish I had the option to do that. With the Z52, we also have the ability to have microphone in and headphone jack in, which is really cool. But one of the negatives is that each HDMI port is itty bitty tiny. It's like the size of a Pez, so it's very fragile. Be careful. I have broke one before in the ZFC. I broke the cable, camera was fine. With us talking about all the autofocus, video, and photo, if you found that interesting, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and best of luck. I'll see you out there shooting.